Okay, welcome to the biology notes for section 4 of chapter 11. This section is over the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So your objectives are to identify the conditions that define Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium and also to explain the predictive value of the Hardy-Weinberg equation. First thing we need to understand is that in order for a population to be in equilibrium, things have to stay the same. That's what equilibrium means. Those populations cannot be changing. They cannot be evolving. That's pretty rare. In order for a population to not evolve, it would have to meet all 5 conditions that are on this slide. The first condition is that the population would have to be very large. If that population is small, that brings in that possibility from section 3 of genetic drift. And we can't have any drift because that caused us to lose diversity, and that would definitely change the allele frequencies in that population. The next condition is there can be no emigration or immigration. If you have individuals leaving or entering that population, then there would have to be some change because some alleles are going to be lost when they leave and new alleles are going to come in if they're immigrating. So you can't have any gene flow from section 3. The third condition is that you can't have any mutations. There should be no mutations because mutations can lead to new traits. They can lead to new alleles. And new alleles, again, is definitely going to change your allele frequencies. Definitely going to make that population different than it was before. So in order to be in equilibrium, you can't have that. Finally, the last 2 can kind of be lumped together. There should be no selection of any kind. You need to have a situation where all traits are equal, so we'll do the last one first. All traits need to be equal. And that's in any situation. Regardless, you can't have any kind of selection. So random mating is talking about that sexual selection we talked about in section 3. So those birds with bright colors that attracted mates, you can't have anything that's advantageous in any way, shape, or form, whether it's for mating or just for survival, because those are the things that are going to be selected for. Those things always become more prevalent in a population. So since we're talking about equilibrium and this population can't evolve, all traits have to be equal. There can be no kind of selection of any kind. So again, the 5 conditions, you need a large population so there's no genetic drift. 2, you can't have anything leaving or entering that population because you can't have gene flow. 3, you can't have any mutations because that would introduce new alleles to the population. And then 4 and 5 are kind of the same. You can't have any kind of selection because that's always going to lead to evolution, since those are advantages that you're talking about. All traits have to be equal in order for that population to stay in equilibrium. Now, as I said before, populations are always evolving. So real populations rarely, and by rarely I mean never, meet all 5 conditions that I just laid out for you. But this model is still going to be useful in the long run. It's useful to biologists because they can compare that predicted data from the model to what's really happening in that population. And when you see a difference from the real data to the data that's predicted by the model, that's when you can tell that populations are evolving. So we want to know what it would look like in equilibrium so that we can prove, so that we can see that that population is evolving. So the model is only going to be useful because you can compare real data to what is predicted so that you can figure out how a population is evolving. Not just see that it's changing, but also be able to tell me how it's evolving in the long run. That's pretty important.